I won't bore you with the drivel I'm sure you'd expect of a doomed woman. I've made peace with it, and I urge you to not attempt changing my mind. I first encountered it at the mall, in the food court, with my friend Jesse. There wasn't much irregular about the day. We had a habit of meeting, provided we were free, at the mall on Saturdays. We had just finished some routine shopping, and Jesse insisted that we ordered something to eat before we left. When I told them that I didn't have money to be spending on food, they shook their head and said that they would pay for it. We approached the desk of an outlet which seemed to have moved in within the previous week, as neither of us recalled seeing it the Saturday previous. Above the outlet glowed a neon yellow sign which read Esser, and behind an off-white counter there was a short, disturbingly skeletal man who tapped the countertop in an offbeat pattern. Behind him, the walls and floors appeared stained, but Jesse insisted we ordered food there, citing their admittedly appeasing menu and Jesse's love for Indian food. Despite my own sanitary concerns and the unease the emaciated man inspired in me at the idea that maybe, just maybe, we may not be so different, I agreed. I rarely have 2 meals a day, if one. Yet I insist to all who make my acquaintance that I am quite chubby, no matter if a scale would disagree. I do not leave my house unless in the company of the few friends I have, as when I am alone I become hopelessly frightened and get myself into frequent embarrassment. So, when Jesse finished their order, then informed me that they would not order for me as well, I stared at them scornfully and shook my head. They pushed it no further, and to their credit, they did not know about my aversion to eating as far as I am aware. They did know, however, that I was deathly afraid of talking to people in even marginally pressured environments, such as at a fast food joint. The man had seemed friendly enough, though. His eyes lit up and he smiled widely at Jesse when they ordered. Yet I thought of it as a minor victory, as I had a viable excuse to why I was not going to eat. I was planning to pick at the food while Jesse ate, then carry it home and toss it in the fridge. I would eat it eventually, of course, the very next day. I was above wasting my friend's money, but I had already eaten before I came. I think I did at least. We waited for the man to give us a receipt, but he just walked into the back and came out with a styrofoam box and a bag and my friend's Coke. He thanked us ecstatically for ordering, wished us a good day, then walked out from behind the desk and disappeared into the business of the mall. I exchanged a strange look with Jesse, but we just chuckled and shrugged it off. Jesse and I didn't linger longer at the mall after that. Neither of us particularly liked the noise of conversation. Jesse tolerated it better than I did, so we got into my car. Jesse ate while I ventured to return them to their apartment. They made strange comments about the food. They said that the food was extremely warm, as if the man had just cooked it when he handed it over, and that it tasted unbelievably good for a place that we had never heard of. After they finished dancing their fork from the food into their mouth, they muttered that they felt heavy, but not fulfilled. I arrived at their apartment complex soon after, and they hugged me and wished me home safely. Before they walked off, though, they said that they needed me to visit on Wednesday night. They had something to give me. I nodded, told them I would be there, and drove home, thinking nothing of the day. The apartment complex in which Jesse lived was scarcely maintained, and the hallways which connected the various rooms together had an air of decay about them. The ceiling panels were fallen or hanging in various areas, the walls were moist where the tenants within could afford air conditioning, and there was an old, pervasive, dusty smell present within each suite, or at least I assumed so. Jesse never was able to rid themselves of it. When Jesse opened the door to let me in on Wednesday, it seemed the necrotic aspect of the building spread even to them. Their eyes lacked the brightness I knew of them, instead seeming to be quite sunken and sleepy. Jesse stood with the door half open, not quite inviting me to enter. "Is everything okay?" A frown tugged at the corner of my lips. I thought Jesse had to be ill. I then perhaps rudely forced my way into their apartment. I wanted to ensure that Jesse was taking care of themselves. However, after I pushed the door open, I noticed that my friend's arms seemed to be held behind their back. but then noticed that they simply lacked the appendage. I stared at them for a few seconds, and tears welled in their eyes. They seemed like they were about to cry, so I guided them towards their couch and allowed them to do so. They broke down, sobbing about hunger. They held their hands on their forehead and made no effort to wipe their eyes or nose as they precipitated. I told them I understood their woes, by misfortune of my own condition, and that even if they felt themselves to have gained what they considered to be an unacceptable amount of weight, it would simply not do to starve. "Jess, look in the mirror. You look wired. Your lips are cracked." I lowered my gaze to their torso, and it seemed that either they had lost more weight than I would have imagined was possible in such a time frame, or they had gone out of their way to wear a shirt that was several sizes too big. Yet my mind returned to Jesse's lost extremity. "What the hell happened? To your arm, I mean." "You don't get it. You won't get it. I ate." "What?" Jesse grabbed my wrist with their remaining arm. "You need to eat, Emily. Promise me you'll eat." "What are you going on about? I don't understand. You ate your arm?" "No, I didn't eat my goddamn—" They chuckled grimly. "I said you wouldn't understand. He ate it. The Esser, he said that if I just give in, if I just eat, then he'll make it quick. He'll make the first bite end it all before he eats me whole, and then I won't know this void anymore. Promise me you'll eat, and make it quick. Once it takes hold, nothing feels like it has any weight anymore." I just nodded and sat awkwardly, gently pulling my arm from their grasp. They smiled at me and got up. They retrieved a sheaf of 2 papers from their kitchen counter, written on which was an annotated copy of The Conqueror Worm by Edgar Allan Poe. I had begged Jesse in months past to read the poem, which I intended to joke about, and honestly thought it had slipped their mind. "I was hoping to give you this with higher spirits, as a token of friendship." They smiled wistfully. "Remember me." I didn't know how to feel as I drove home. Neither did I when I sat at my table and ate a proper meal to fulfill my friend's strange last request. Afterwards I went to sleep, naively hoping that when I awoke, it would be revealed that the day was nothing more than a dream or a well-executed joke. When I awoke, there was a man standing in the corner of my room, the same man, I realized, who stood behind the register at Esser. He looked mournful, yet noticeably less skeletal than when I'd seen him at the mall. He told me that he was the Lord of the Flies. He told me that he was sorry for what had to happen, but everything had to eat, and he had no other choice than to come to reap my lackluster mass due to my association with Jesse. Then he got up and ran straight through my window, breaking it. I knew better than to doubt my sobriety, and I knew, failing insanity, that this entity was real. I fell into a deep depression for the next day or so. I didn't eat. I didn't call any of the few other friends I had. I merely lay on my bed, showered, and went on my phone. I wondered if I was failing Jesse by not doing as they asked, and though it seemed pointless, I made an effort to make myself a rather large sandwich. I sank my teeth into the fiber of the sandwich and felt the slimy bolus slide down my throat and into my stomach. I still felt guilty, but I consider promises sacred, and I would feel much guiltier betraying one I made. When I woke up the next day, my hand was gone. There was a grievous wound which was haphazardly stitched shut, and caused me to gag as I looked on the raw flesh. I think, through a lucky delusion, I deduced correctly that it was missing due to my eating. The sandwich probably weighed as much as my hand did. I tended to blame things unreasonably on my eating, though, as I've been told. That day, due to said delusion, I refused to eat. That night I was watching a TV show on my laptop, sat on my couch, when I felt its presence next to me. It didn't seem hostile, merely sitting next to me, and in fact, it disarmed me when I noticed that it was watching my laptop as I was. However, its stomach growled constantly, every few seconds, and it fidgeted as if in withdrawal. "Aren't you hungry?" it asked. Its voices were soft and numerous, like a wave of cotton blanketing me. I blinked at it and looked into what passed as its eyes. I saw in its eyes not quite the worry which I had become familiar with getting from friends and family, but rather a hint of fear, maybe even desperation. I recalled what Jesse had said to me the last time I had seen them and stated my assumption. If I eat, you'll be able to take my flesh. Are you hungry? I wasn't quite sure if it was true, but I could find reason to believe it. My friend had said that it had eaten their arm, and it wanted them to continue eating, in exchange for making their death fast. Why else would this thing care about our eating habits? Still, I wasn't sure if the Esser would still be able to harm me if I angered it, so after saying that to it, I got up and locked myself in the bathroom. It made no move to enter or try to break the door, and when I got out, it was still sitting there on the couch. A week passed, and I refused to partake in food. I felt a rope wrap around my gut and pull tightly, yet it was nothing new. I saw my lips crack as my salivary glands became swollen, my face became sunken, and my skin stretches taut and clings to my ribs like cling wrap. My limbs are but bones blanketed solely with skin, and are rigid. I feel exhausted, and the sun burns my eyes, which have taken on a similar quality to my late friends, yet lacking the sense of hopelessness I'd seen in them. My body discards the contemptible fat which haunted me ever throughout my life, and I can no longer find it within me to push my reservations aside and shovel weight into my maw. I will not bloat my body, stain my purity, in the pursuit of some socially defined idea of health. I know that now, just for the rest of the time I bide, I can do so without guilt. Yet what truly convinced me to take the creature with me is that if I did so, I would die happy. My stomach goes in. If anything, as ashamed as I am to admit, this creature has blessed me with a pristine death. It begged me to eat one night, asked me if I didn't feel the gnawing at my insides, a feeling which I am all too used to. This is no way to go, it told me. There is no dignity in this. Give in. I will make it quick. Eat enough to provide me access to your entire mass, and the first thing I will do is rip your jugular out. You will not awake. All I heard were the doomed pleas of an eternal entity consigned to a shared coffin. I figured out after a day that even as I drank calories, the weight was stripped of me. I drank a can of beer the day after, and woke up to find several of my fingers on my remaining hand ripped off crudely, and the bones barely attached to my hand still by scarce strings of sinew. This was less ideal. Dehydration is a discomfort which still pains me, but it seems that the quantity the Lord of Stench is able to strip from me was equivalent not to weight, but to calories. Water would gain me, nor lose me no mass. It's been a week since. I feel the hunger pangs periodically, but I've since turned to less healthy methods to stave off the feeling. Not that my health is of any consequence of me now. As I look at my own image in the mirror and find that I am so skinny I rot from view, just as I've wanted, I see its wretched form rot when it begs me to give in to the whaler's grievance of guilty consumption. I have probably half a week left until my body can no longer find the energy to keep its shriveled mass afloat, but so does the creature, and from this I feel a sick, avenged satisfaction.